Hi again guys, and welcome to one of the most important reviews we've done for Gran Turismo Sport so far, and I would say probably one of the most important reviews we'll ever do. Not because of the specific car as such, because of course this car has already been featured on Gran Turismo in a number of games, in both premium and non-premium forms. It's been changed throughout the years, updated, refined, made to look, sound and perform better, right up to the point where we are now, but more so in a general sense as far as what this car represents, because it's not technically the first classic car to be featured in GT Sport. That is of course the Pikes Peak Quattro, but in a more production road-based sense, it is the first classic as far as that goes. So with that being said, this car not only confirmed that we can indeed look forward to having more classics, not necessarily tons and tons of them, but at least some classics in GT Sport. And for people like myself, and I know many of you guys as well, that is a very important thing, because classic cars are one of the biggest fandom areas of being a petrol head. You don't have to like them, of course, everyone has their own pros and cons and preferences, but classic cars and vintage cars as a genre, if you will, has so much to offer, and you can see many of those offerings in this very series, Days Gone By. This is the, 82nd episode, something like that, of this series, so there are so many cars like that in the world of Gran Turismo to use, varying from the birth of the car in 1886 on Gran Turismo 4, right up until cars like this, high-performance classics, or even racing ones like the Toyota 7 and the Chaparral 2J on older Gran Turismo games. Now, of course, we have already reviewed this Cobra, this specific Cobra, in fact, on Gran Turismo 6, so usually I don't review the same car twice. So the question arises, why am I? Well, for the same reason, actually, as why I reviewed, or re-reviewed, the Nismo GTR LMP car on GT Sport. Because if there is a significant enough change to the vehicle in terms of its spec, its ability, or even its tuning potential, then I will revisit it if it's on a current, relevant game to see what kind of changes it's made. Now, in the case of something like the LM Nismo, it makes a huge difference in terms of how competitive that car is. It's gone from being an afterthought or a collector's piece on GT6 to basically the fastest LMP car in the game in a straight line. That's a pretty huge jump to have. So how has the Gran Turismo Sport treatment treated the Cobra? Is it better, worse, the same, just a refined concept? How does it compare? And also, how does it compare to the modern cars of the N classes? Because it's an N500 car, you can tune it up to N700 and also lower it quite a bit as well. So what kind of potential does it have? Well, in its stock form, it's got a 7-litre engine, a V8 of course, it's rear-wheel drive, it's pretty lightweight, as the Cobra always is, 1,068 kilos, and it's putting out great numbers, 484 horsepower, 480 pound-feet of torque. Now, these days, that may not sound amazing, but back then, that truly is, as far as a sports car goes, a 2-seater ragtop, specifically, a huge spec, even for an American car. There weren't many rivals to the Cobra for this kind of vehicle, and even to this day there's something about the Cobra which still feels unique. There's nothing quite like a Cobra. There are some which are similar. TVRs, for instance, have that kind of vibe, but even then they're not quite like a Cobra. It's a demanding car, and a car which, as I said, demands respect. Specifically, it's a professional car by its very definition, but at the same time it's very fun. It's extremely competitive, not just in Daytona form, but also in this form, the 427, and even in the 289 form with the much smaller engine. They're all very fast sports cars which can genuinely take on even sports cars from today, and this car goes to show that. Now, in fully tuned form, which is probably what many people who haven't bought the car yet will want to know about, these are the kind of numbers you can expect. You're looking at specifically 736 horsepower and 950 kilos. Now, that's not quite as good as on GT6. That's a little bit less power. I believe it was 785 on that game, and the weight is a little bit higher. If memory serves, I think it was 903 kilos. So it is more, but at the same time, that's a lot. Well over 700 horsepower in a car that weighs well under a tonne. That's supercar territory. So, what does it perform like? That's the question that anyone who hasn't driven the car wants to know. Is it worth spending that huge 2 million credit price on? Well, yes and no, because it very much depends on the kind of player you are. Many people don't care about classics, and if you don't, I would say that that is a very big factor in the argument of whether or not you should buy one. If you like classic cars, if you already like the Shelby Cobra on older Gran Turismo games and other racing games, then yes, definitely buy it. You won't be disappointed. However, if you're not really that into classic cars, it's not an entirely necessary vehicle. It's a very competitive one, a very powerful one, a very fast one for sure. The acceleration is fantastic. But at the same time, it's not an essential purchase for somebody who just wants to win races, because there are definitely cars which are a lot easier to win races with. And that brings us to how the handling compares, because the performance is not quite as strong as on GT6. On there you could get up around 265 miles per hour, whereas now you're going to need a much longer straight to get to that kind of speed, if you can even get that high at all. But in terms of the handling, more specifically, there are a couple of changes which haven't necessarily made the car bad. I wouldn't call it bad at all, it's very fast, but they've definitely made it more challenging, and the one in particular is an issue which I believe I have discussed before, and it's definitely an issue which I have with a number of cars. In fact, to be honest, all of the road-going cars on GT Sport so far, and I really do hope that they change this with DLC, and it's strange to me that this isn't already the case, and that is that you cannot upgrade the brakes on any road car. That is very strange. Why they chose to do that, I do not know, given that tuning and upgrades are definitely a part of this game. Unfortunately, you can't do anything about that, and that really hinders a classic car, because even a car which is designed for high performance like a Cobra is, it's still not that good by today's standards in terms of braking power. And as a result of that, I had to restart on this track a number of times to get a decent replay, not after multiple laps, but just after the first straight section, because I kept on braking where I would in a usual sports car, even one with this kind of power, like a Mustang or a Hellcat, and it just doesn't stop in that kind of distance. It goes way further because of those weak old brakes. So you definitely have to factor that in, and of course, the more power that you have, the more that will factor in. If you keep it down to, say, like the N400 class or even N500, then it's much less an issue. But it is an issue nevertheless, and of course this car is known for being very slippery. Now I'm running over 700 horsepower, 950 kilos in this race, or this free roam if you will, this free run, with sport soft tyres, as you can see, and with that, it's definitely a challenge. It's a very fun one, but it is a challenge nonetheless. So as far as whether it's worth buying or not, well, I pretty much covered it. If the car appeals to you watching this video, then get it, because you won't be disappointed. However, if you just want to win races, there are certainly more affordable options out there. But overall, it's a great car in terms of what it beckons for the future of GT Sport, and I'm a huge fan of the Cobra, so I love seeing it in the game. But for now, that's it for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.